Okay, friends, got a great question today. Somebody wrote, and it's not an uncommon thought, and asked the question, what do I do when I feel like giving up? I actually feel like giving up now, this person wrote, or I already have. And she went on to describe kind of a whole phenomena of a situation that's something many of us frequently have felt in our lives, depending on the time or situation, what's going on. So when it comes to this food and eating thing, though, like you've got a problem, any sort of addictive compulsive process, really, there is present, I found in it, kind of a cycle of thinking. And when we're following that cycle of thinking and kind of going through the steps and the motions and the process, like a wheel, like we're stuck on a wheel. Let's say just the bottom of the wheel, down below, way down, because that's what it sort of feels like when you're in a give up mode. I'm depressed. This is horrible. It's kind of got an emptiness, a gray tone to it, a hopeless tone. Who cares? Why bother? It's really deeply stressful. We're using this word stressful for anything where the way we're seeing life, the way we're looking at what's going on. It definitely feels sort of isolated and empty, and just this word depressed, very suppressed, very down, low energy, hardly any motivation. And let's just see all that's going on there, because it's not uncommon, especially when there's been a cycle, like part of this round cycle, this gerbil wheel of, the way we work with kind of compulsive thoughts or just thought, period, is when we start to feel energy and hopeful and let's get up out of this. There's often, a little motivation, maybe anger, maybe frustration. I'm going to just kick this to the curb. I'm going to get over this. That starts to kind of rise up. I'm going to hammer this down. I'm going to be really intense and strong about this. And so we'll get up there, and many people know that kind of approach, and it lasts for 1 minute to a whole year. This is just what I'm doing. I'm following like sort of a program. I'm containing myself. I'm managing. Sometimes this is what's referred to as kind of diet mentality, when it gets just a way of thinking that is lockdown. We're going to go into lockdown so that we don't experience the depths of that depression. And I don't know, I just found often within myself and hearing from others, it's a very, very common way to kind of rise up out of depression. The only thing is, it's not sustainable. Even when people have done things with eating issues, like held on for an entire year to going without that kind of food substance, or not doing this for a really long time. That's a long time, every season of your life, in a year, losing weight for an entire year, arriving at your weight loss goal. And of course, we all know about the thing that happens is there's drop into that space, and there's something that gets very tired of the control, being controlled. So there's got to be another way up and out of that depression, that depressive experience. So first of all, just looking at the elements of that. And of course, we'll say that's not good. It's terrible to be in that kind of depressive state. It feels awful, but in some ways it feels more relaxed than that striving, driving, intense, tight-fisted state. At least it certainly does the way I'm looking at it. And so there's some kind of rest and just as people say, when they feel depressed, they don't feel like even moving or getting out of the house. They want to stay in bed. They want to stay on the couch. You might move about and be in your life, but still have this kind of weak malaise kind of running inside. So that's, doing the work on that, like watching the stream of thinking that's happening, because the body and the feelings emotionally, physically respond to what's running in the mind. And we're just looking, and yes, maybe there's aspects of it that are physically happening, chemically happening. Gotta, just make a note of that and say, sure, there can be, chemical imbalances, conflicts, whatever happening based on what's going on in this big chemical boiling, stewing pot of, molecules and atoms and everything, of course. And given that, still to see what's our approach? How are we looking at that when we touch that place that is very quiet and depressed and sort of empty and floaty and gives up and says, why bother? Okay. I think just noticing that in that state of mind, often there are not as many thoughts. They're certainly not fast and speedy. But that why bother is very powerful. I just noticed it when the person wrote and included that in their situation. Why bother? As if I need to bother to get up and out of this state of being. I need to be bothered. I need to care. So I don't care how I feel. I don't mind being in this state. I don't want to try. I give up. And that's a terrible thing. Is it true? If you say yes, simply notice that. I love noticing that the images that come in of what we think it looks like to bother. It has to look like this and that aggressive experience. It needs to look like a diet, or I'm getting my act together, or here's what I eat during the day, and this is what I don't eat during the night. And this is how I want my body to look, and I'm insistent on that, and I'm going for the goal. All those images are in there, and no wonder, because some of them are so piled up high about what it will take and what's involved, and the willpower. Often people will say in this kind of state, I just need more motivation. I don't have enough willpower. I just need to get my act together. Okay, so the mind's just talking about that way and talking in that way and noticing sort of this malaise. Can you absolutely know it's true? You shouldn't be where you are, or that you do give up. Who's the you that's giving up? What is that? Noticing what happens when we're thinking that way, when we believe that thought, when we're seeing it as if there's a me who's either fighting or dropping into, there's nothing I can do. Both of those kind of common places to be. There's a little tiny speck of a me that's so tiny and small, inconsequential in a way, or fighting for my life. And it seems like there's a big, huge, overwhelming problem, condition here. Life on earth, life with an addictive problem, life with compulsive thoughts and urges, life with food. Who would we be without that story? And you can spend time in there in your own journal writing, like actually being willing to get to know the pace of your own thinking and how you're seeing things and what kind of things come up and what images are seen from the past. What feels so hopeless about this? Often there'll be images of years of trying, quote unquote, and it's okay. Like all that trying has happened. We're not saying that isn't real. But just looking at the learning and the seeing and the being and all those images of lots of past history and where this is going in the future. Maybe nowhere, right? Who would you be without the story? I give up. And I love seeing, who is that I who's given up? What if there is a giving up that happens? I notice that if I say I give up and I actually feel that, I just don't want to fight about whatever it is, I'm still alive. I don't drop dead. I'm not fighting, but I'm not saying I lost without the story of I give up. Yeah, it's like we'll either think we're fighting to win or we've lost. Both are very stressful. What if there was another way to see it? What if there's another way to be with it? What if it's okay I don't want to fight and I don't want to just die? Something in us doesn't. Because just because we have a thought, I give up, I wish I was dead, I don't like this, whatever, however depressing it gets, just because we have those thoughts, it doesn't actually happen. Thinking doesn't make it so. Something is continuing to live here. There's a movement. What if I could be without my stories about the past and the future? What if I could just be still for a moment here? Or even if the mind is racing, let it race. I love the image and the metaphor of a river that I'll mention from time to time, like as if I'm standing in the middle of a great stream that's really quite rushing. Maybe I can barely stand up to my waist or something, a lot of water, and the water is thought running, bubbling, streaming, talking. And if I'm standing in the middle of that river and the water is getting deeper and I can't really make it, I have to get pulled down the stream, there can be something that is briefly relaxing about not being able to fight anymore and like just getting up and going with the flow of the river, but not very stressful. There's always in the movies, there's a big giant waterfall coming, right? That's always happening downstream. So we want to get out of the middle of that flow of the stream, I suppose, engulfed, drowning in all the thinking, and move ourselves just up to the edge of the stream, the riverbank. That's how I see this. Who would I be without my story? I'm not in the middle of the stream of thinking. I'm seeing it all happening, but I'm not in the giving up completely. I'm not in, I need to fight and, get on a diet and get a plan here and go to the gym today and all the usual things that people think when they've got, food, eating off balance, running and happening. And the emotions. So who would I be if I didn't believe my thinking? If I didn't believe my thinking, and I just imagine myself going up to the edge of that very fast flowing river, and I just sit on the edge of it, pull myself out and sit on the edge of it and notice that something is there, present, alive, no matter what's happening. And there's a safety in that moment, in that space. Who would we be right now in this moment without the story? I give up, or this is an emergency. Usually flipping between the two. Who would we be without that story? Just noticing the depressive story, the depression story. Worthless, why bother, hopeless, don't want to try, too much effort, too much work, whatever your words are for it, whatever that looks like and sounds like. if I didn't believe that, because I do love noticing its thought. How do my hands feel about the situation? My eating issues, my compulsive mind. They're okay no matter what's been going on. And yes, it feels better not to be so off balance. But I do see the benefit in a way of that, taking yourself out of the fight and just being in the nothing, I give up space. But what if that's actually could be generative and encouraging and just open-minded and like, let's see where this is going. Yeah. Let's see where this goes. What if you were in a brand new relationship and somebody that you really, really liked and you were kind of interested, you're attracted to each other, you're talking and maybe just in the initial stages of dating, and you find you really like each other and you have a great time together, and the other person says, well, let's see where this goes. Or you thought that. Let's see where this goes. There's like an openness to it. You notice that when we have the depression assumed, like this depressive stance about life itself and ourselves and the way we've been eating, is that it's endless agony and it's dull and it's worth nothing. And it's just got a very, very low, unhappy space to it. So it is totally stressful, deeply stressful. And we're looking at like just circling around in that big hamster wheel pattern and just being on that space of the downward spiral and just thinking, what if I could see things another way right now in this moment? I don't even have to start doing that for the rest of my life or do anything grand, but just right here, when it comes to this addictive process, being compulsive, a movement towards food or whatever other substance or the things that I do in my mind that result in behaviors. What if I didn't do anything about it and that was actually enlivening in this moment, even if I don't know what to do for sure? And it doesn't mean I won't take action, inspired action, and kind of be with something here or learn something about this, or I've been learning so much my whole life already. What if balance is possible? What if goodness and value and worthiness is present? I was just been missing it, even about life itself. So can't help but seeing that when we have that thought, I give up, we're giving up on ourselves and we're giving up on the way we're seeing the world. And usually our attitude towards the world is pretty depressing. So, okay that we're there, nothing wrong with that. But simply to notice there have been things that have occurred or situations I've experienced that have led me to conclude, maybe very, very fast, that life is not so great, not even worth it. I give up on that. It's too hard. These thoughts can be questioned. Every single one of them can be questioned. That is mind talking. So without my story, if I suddenly just, even in this moment right here, didn't know what happened the last time with food and eating or all those other things that happen that feel depressing and difficult, notice that even if something really difficult and tragic happens in our lives that we think of as just devastating, we're not always thinking about it every single second of every hour. That's amazing to see. And we're noticing that, like something is underway and it feels like it's really terrible and dangerous and I don't like it. It's okay not to like it, but I'm not remembering it every second of every hour. I'm even asleep sometimes, no thought at all. Who would I be without the story? I give up, too depressing, not worth it. And find your turnarounds, the best way you can say it. Who I am is worth it. I don't give up. Only my thinking is giving up. It's just could only be my thoughts that give up. I mean, my hands have not given up ever. The body, the heart's still beating. Life is still underway here, this life force. My eyes are, seeing, I'm taking in with the world, with the senses. Mind is still running and working, whether it's talking about giving up or not. There just is a life energy here that's happening, no matter what I'm thinking. And maybe I've given up on life, or I think life's given up on me, but maybe I've given up on life itself. I am saying no to the world and to the occurrences and to the difficulties out there that I've encountered. Who would I be without my story? Who would I be without my story? What if I could slow down? The benefits of depression are just feeling a great slowness inside, a movement down, a kind of silence, and that can have an offering to it. But without that continued running of how horrible things are, like the bleakness of it all, who would I be? And how would I turn around if I had different glasses on that didn't look like that, just for this moment, just feel the presence of life running through me? Without my story, just, interesting to notice how sure the mind is about what's dangerous and what's going to happen and what's bad and that it's all bad and there's just nothing I can do and I've tried everything and just talking and talking. And we'll just notice that's just thought. It's just thought making noise. Very helpful that it's here to, offer suggestions on which way to move. But if I don't know, could it be just okay? And just to, sense and be with what is and notice that I still get up and there is movement. So finding all your turnarounds, being with it all, just noticing it is not hopeless. It's not all for nothing. The world is not horrible. I am not horrible. How can I possibly know that that's true? It's possible for me to eat in balance. It's possible. I might not know how, but it is possible. I remember thinking that long ago. If other human beings can eat in balance, I must be able to. I mean, was I born with something missing? No, I wasn't. I could see it's the way I'm seeing things. So even if I don't know quite how to see it yet, I'm not there in that just holding steady or stubbornly in that place that I don't know, and that's terrible. It's terrible that I don't know. It's willing to not know right now, today, in this moment. Noticing how I'm okay. I'm okay. It might come to me an offering of something to be present to. Who knows? Life will move me around. And if I need to be slow for a little bit, that's okay too. So, just great question. Big, wide, broad question. So huge. The experience of depression and trouble and sadness and the depths of that we'll experience. But I love that Byron Katie says this. Beginners sometimes ask me what will happen if they do the work on a regular basis. They're afraid that without a story, they won't be motivated to act and won't know what to do. The experience of those who do the work is that the opposite is true. Inquiry naturally gives rise to action that is clear, kind, and fearless. When you begin to meet your thinking with understanding, your body follows. It begins to move by itself, so you don't have to do anything. The work is about noticing our thoughts, not about changing them. When you work with the thinking, the doing naturally follows. So trusting that process. It might look like you're still sitting in the chair, but the first step is just gathering what your thoughts are. It helps so much to write, and then applying the 4 questions and finding turnarounds. Katie goes on to say, and I found this to be so true, if you sit in a chair and have great insight, is that the end of it? I don't think so. Doing the work is only half the process. The other half happens when the insights come to life. Until they live as action, they're not fully yours. So we just trust that that is the where it's going, to be human. There will be a desire to move, something will come, life will show up differently. That will happen. Certainly happened with me. And the natural place to be is actually balanced with food and eating, or our thoughts. That's the natural place to be. That's the place that just all the rivers flow down to, all the streaming thoughts are moving towards. Rest, relaxation, joy, loving attention and awareness, noticing we get afraid, but it's temporary. So naturally, who we are, eating PCs, people who are balanced, peaceful with food and eating, or anything that's disturbing us, even though it seems like the thinking hasn't been so. So play with that, see what it's like. We'll see you next time. Lots of love, everybody.